if someone ignores you. Life has a way of surprising us with its twists and turns. There are times when people around us might not notice our efforts or even fail to acknowledge our worth. But here's the truth. Their silence is not a reflection of you. It is a reflection of them. I've learned that when people ignore you, it doesn't mean you're invisible or less important. It simply means that they are not ready to see the beauty that you carry. But that does not change your value. It does not reduce the light you bring into this world. In fact, sometimes the louder we shine, the more people are afraid of our light. And that is not your problem. It is their fear. I know what it feels like to be overlooked. There was a time when I was told I could never stand again, never speak again, never live the life I once dreamt of. But guess what? I refused to let anyone's perception of me dictate my reality. When someone ignores you, don't waste your energy chasing after their approval. Don't break yourself trying to make them see what they're not ready to see. Instead, channel that energy into something that uplifts you, something that helps you grow, something that allows you to rise above. Understand that you are not defined by the opinions of others. You define yourself. The way you carry yourself, the way you love yourself, the way you walk in this world, that is your truth. And no amount of neglect from others can diminish that. When someone ignores you, it is an invitation to focus on yourself. It's a call to invest in your own growth. Take that time to rediscover your passions, nurture your dreams, and build your strength. Because the truth is, the ones who ignore you today may one day wish they had seen you for who you truly are. So remember this, your worth is not measured by someone else's ability to recognize it. Your journey is yours and yours alone. And just because someone doesn't see you doesn't mean you're not worthy of being seen. So let them ignore you. You keep rising, you keep shining, and most importantly, you keep believing in yourself because you are enough, just as you are. Self-worth is often a complex and multifaceted concept, deeply intertwined with how we perceive ourselves, our capabilities, and our interactions with others. Many of us are conditioned to derive our self-worth from external sources. The praise of family members, validation from friends, or the recognition of colleagues and peers. These external affirmations become the metrics by which we gauge our own value. We find ourselves asking, am I good enough based on how others treat us, how they see us, or how they respond to us? But the truth is that self-worth is not dependent on others' recognition. It is an internal compass, one that should be rooted in our own sense of dignity, integrity, and inner peace. As we navigate through life, we will inevitably encounter moments when others fail to recognize our worth. These moments can take many forms. Perhaps someone dismisses our ideas, ignores our achievements, or even actively belittles us. It's easy in these situations to internalize these actions and feel as though we are somehow lacking. After all, if others can't see our value, does that mean we are unworthy? Does that mean we're not enough? It is in these moments that we must challenge our own beliefs and understand that the worth we carry is not dependent on someone else's acknowledgement. The world is full of people with different perspectives, biases, and experiences. What one person fails to recognize, another might appreciate fully. Just because one person fails to see your worth doesn't mean that it isn't there. Their inability to recognize your value is not a reflection of you, but a reflection of them. It speaks more about their perception, their priorities, and the limitations they place on their understanding of the world than it does about your abilities, character, or contribution. Think of it this way. There are countless beautiful and rare things in the world that go unnoticed by many. For example, a rare flower might bloom in a secluded part of a forest, far away from human eyes. Its petals may be a vibrant shade of purple, its fragrance sweet and captivating, but if no one is around to see it, does that diminish its beauty? Of course not. Its worth remains the same, regardless of whether or not it's noticed. And just like that flower, your value does not diminish simply simply because someone else fails to recognize it. Your worth is inherent, not situational. It's also crucial to acknowledge that the act of recognition is subjective. What one person sees as valuable might be entirely different from what another person values. This doesn't make one perception right and the other wrong. It simply shows that value is often based on individual perspectives. When we look at ourselves through the lens of someone else's expectations or judgments, we are bound to face disillusionment because their standards and perspectives might not align with who we truly are. We might not fit into the mold they expect us to, and that's okay. You are not meant to fit into someone else's mold. You are meant to carve out your own path and define your own sense of self-worth. It's easy to let someone's dismissive behavior or lack of acknowledgement affect us, especially when we are invested in that person's opinion or when their opinion holds significant weight in our lives. But the truth is, if you rely too heavily on external validation, you set yourself up for emotional instability. The moment that validation is withheld or denied, your self-worth becomes fragile, and you might find yourself questioning your abilities, your dreams, and even your very existence. This is where the concept of self-validation comes into play. Learning to validate yourself rather than seeking constant approval from others is one of the most empowering steps you can take toward establishing a solid sense of self-worth. It's about being able to stand in front of a mirror and affirm, I am enough just as I am, without needing anyone else to say it. It's about recognizing your own accomplishments, no matter how small, and acknowledging your own efforts, even if no one else does. It's about knowing your own value, independent of anyone else's perspective. This self-vigilation doesn't mean you should dismiss the constructive feedback from others, nor does it mean you should shut yourself off from healthy criticism or advice. What it means is that you understand that your worth is not tied to their opinions. You value yourself because you know your strengths, your uniqueness, and your potential. You don't wait for others to tell you what you're worth because you already know. And when someone does fail to see it, it no longer affects you the way it might have in the past. You learn to let go of the need for external recognition because you've created a sense of internal recognition that no one can take away. In addition, we often find ourselves in relationships, whether personal or professional, where our value is constantly questioned. In toxic relationships, people might minimize our worth or even try to convince us that we are unimportant. They may overlook our contributions, undermine our achievements, or make us feel invisible. This can be incredibly hurtful, especially if we care deeply about the person or situation. But it's essential to understand that these actions are often a reflection of their own insecurities, fears, and shortcomings. They may not have the capacity to appreciate what we bring to the table because they are too focused on their own limitations. In such situations, it's important to protect our own self-worth. Don't let others' inability to recognize your value cause you to doubt yourself. You are not defined by the opinions of others. Your worth is not a bargaining chip for someone else's validation. It is intrinsic, and the right people who genuinely appreciate you, who recognize your worth, will not ignore you. They will uplift you, support you, and encourage you to be the best version of yourself. People's silence reflects their fear, not your value. It's a statement that we often forget to consider when we find ourselves in moments of rejection or neglect. When someone fails to recognize our worth, we tend to internalize it, thinking it says something about us as individuals. We begin to question our abilities, our importance, or whether we are worthy of love, attention, or respect. But in reality, their silence, their disregard, or their inability to see us for who we truly are is a reflection of their own limitations, their own fears, and their own biases, not a true measure of our value. We live in a world that is constantly changing, where people are influenced by societal norms, past experiences, and their own insecurities. When someone ignores us or chooses not to see our worth, it's often because they are struggling with their own challenges. They may be dealing with their own doubts, their own insecurities, or their own fear of inadequacy. People, after all, are not always capable of appreciating what they don't understand, and it's important to recognize that their inability to see us for who we are is often a product of their internal battles, not a reflection of our actual value. Take, for example, the concept of fear. Fear is a powerful emotion, and it often manifests itself in subtle ways that prevent people from embracing new ideas, new people, or new opportunities. When someone is afraid, whether it's fear of failure, fear of being judged, or fear of not being enough, they might shut themselves off from others. They might ignore or dismiss things that make them uncomfortable simply because those things challenge their beliefs, their status quo, or their comfort zone. Their fear causes them to retreat, to close themselves off to what they cannot control or understand. And unfortunately, in some cases, that fear extends to the people around them, causing them to overlook or reject the very people who could help them grow or see the world in a new light. When someone ignores you, it's possible that they are simply afraid to engage with the full, vibrant version of you. They might not know how to process your energy, your ideas, or your perspective. They may fear that acknowledging your worth would force them to confront their own inadequacies or shortcomings. It's easy to feel hurt or discouraged when someone does not give us the attention we feel we deserve. But it's essential to remember that their silence doesn't diminish who we are. It reflects their inability to see past their own fears, their own insecurities, or their own limitations. Furthermore, it's important to recognize that people often ignore what they cannot relate to or understand. This is especially true in a society that tends to categorize and label things, placing them into neat boxes of acceptable or unacceptable, normal or abnormal. If you are someone who stands out, who challenges the status quo, who thinks or lives differently, you might be met with resistance, rejection, or indifference from those who are afraid of what they don't understand. But this is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their narrow view of the world, their unwillingness to open their minds and hearts to something new. It's incredibly tempting to take someone's ignorance or disregard personally, especially when it feels like we are putting ourselves out there, vulnerable and open. But when we take their actions personally, we give them power over our emotional state. We allow their fear to become our reality. Instead, we must learn to understand that their silence, their indifference, or their lack of recognition speaks volumes about their own struggles, not about our value. People often fear what they cannot control, and this is especially true when it comes to relationships, career advancement, or self-expression. If someone sees you as a threat to their own identity, success, or sense of control, they may respond by ignoring you, dismissing you, or even belittling you. It's their way of attempting to protect themselves from feeling vulnerable or exposed. It's their way of coping with their own feelings of inadequacy or uncertainty. But none of this has anything to do with you. Their fear is rooted in their own experience of the world, and it does not dictate your worth or your abilities. One of the most empowering realizations we can have is that other people's reactions are a reflection of them, not of us. When we understand this, we stop internalizing the negative behavior or attitudes of others. We stop allowing their fear, judgment, or ignorance to define how we see ourselves. It becomes easier to move through the world with a sense of confidence, knowing that we are not defined by someone else's failure to appreciate us. When someone ignores you, it's important to remind yourself that their response is about their fear of the unknown, their fear of what you represent, and their inability to process your unique energy. Your value does not change because of their fear. The way they react to you is a direct consequence of their own fears, and in many cases, their inability to see beyond those fears limits their growth and understanding. At the same time, it's essential to recognize that fear is a natural part of the human experience. We all experience it in different forms and at different times. It's how we manage our fears and grow from them that ultimately defines our ability to succeed and move forward in life. And just as others may fear what they don't understand, we too can sometimes fall into the trap of fearing the unknown, fearing failure or fearing rejection. However, when we learn to see past these fears, we begin to uncover the vast potential that lies within each of us. We stop letting fear control our decisions, our self-worth, and our relationships. We start to embrace the understanding that other people's fears should never be a reflection of who we are or what we are capable of achieving. Ultimately, it's important to remember that the behavior of others reflects their own fears, and those fears have nothing to do with your worth. Their silence, their indifference, or their inability to recognize your value is simply a mirror of their inner struggles. It does not change who you are or what you bring to the world. Your worth is not determined by their recognition. It is determined by your own sense of self, your confidence, and your ability to embrace your unique gifts. So when someone ignores you, recognize that their fear is not your burden to carry. Keep moving forward, knowing that your value remains unchanged. When someone ignores you, the natural instinct is often to chase after their attention, to seek their validation, to try and prove your worth in a way that they cannot ignore. It can be painful to feel invisible, to feel as though your efforts are not being acknowledged. But in these moments, it's important to recognize that instead of pouring your energy into seeking validation from those who overlook you, it's far more powerful to focus on your own growth. In fact, focusing on your own personal development is not only more fulfilling, but it's also the key to elevating your life and your mindset to a place where the actions of others no longer have the power to dictate how you feel about yourself. We live in a world that thrives on external validation. From social media likes to professional accolades, the acknowledgement of others has become an external marker of success, worth, and achievement. But relying on external validation can be a double-edged sword. When we depend too much on others' recognition to define our self-worth, we allow ourselves to become vulnerable to disappointment. If people don't acknowledge us, we start to believe that something is wrong with us. We begin to question our abilities, our value, and our place in the world. But when we shift our focus to our own growth and progress, something profound happens. We stop measuring ourselves by others' standards. We begin to see that our worth is not tied to someone else's acknowledgement. The only true validation we need comes from within ourselves. By focusing on our own development, we create a sense of self-assurance and resilience that doesn't depend on anyone else's opinions or action. Instead of feeling deflated when someone ignores us, we start to feel empowered by our own ability to keep moving forward, regardless of the external noise. The key to focusing on your own growth is understanding that personal development is an ongoing process. It's not about waiting for someone else to notice you. It's about becoming the best version of yourself, even in the absence of that validation. This journey of growth includes working on your emotional intelligence, strengthening your skills, and improving your mindset. It's about learning to embrace your own potential and recognizing that the more you invest in your growth, the more equipped you become to handle the challenges that life throws your way. The moment you stop chasing others for approval, you take back control of your own narrative. Rather than feeling discouraged or defeated when someone ignores you, you realize that their lack of recognition has no bearing on your progress. You begin to see that the only person you need to impress is yourself, and in doing so, you free yourself from the constant cycle of seeking external validation. This freedom opens up new opportunities for growth because you are no longer dependent on the approval of others to feel good about yourself. Furthermore, focusing on your own growth gives you a sense of purpose and direction that is not easily shaken by others' opinions. When you are deeply invested in your own journey, you stop giving undue importance to the actions of others. You become less concerned with whether or not people are paying attention to you and more concerned with the progress you are making toward your goals. This shift in mindset allows you to focus your energy on what truly matters: your own aspirations, your own dreams, and your own path. It's important to recognize that growth is not always linear. It doesn't always come in the form of a visible achievement or a moment of recognition. Sometimes growth happens quietly in small, everyday actions. It's in the way you respond to challenges, in how you handle adversity, in the courage it takes to keep going when no one else is watching. And the more you embrace your own growth, the more you learn to appreciate these moments of quiet transformation. Even when others ignore you, you're still moving forward. You're still evolving, becoming more resilient, and building the life you want for yourself. In fact, when you focus on your growth, you begin to understand that the people who ignore you or fail to acknowledge you might be missing out on the opportunity to see just how much you've grown. They might not realize the strength you've cultivated, the wisdom you've gained, or the depth of your character. But that's not your problem, it's theirs. You don't need their recognition to validate the hard work you've put into your personal development. Your progress doesn't require an audience. It is at its core about you and your journey. When you realize this, it becomes easier to stop chasing after others' attention and instead focus on the internal satisfaction that comes from knowing you are growing and evolving regardless of external circumstances. By focusing on your growth, you also become better equipped to handle future challenges. Life is full of ups and downs, and it's impossible to avoid the occasional feeling of being overlooked or underappreciated. But when you invest in yourself, when you prioritize your own development, you become more resilient to these moments. You develop the strength to brush off the negativity, to keep going even when others fail to see you, and to remain grounded in your own sense of worth. Your growth becomes the armor that protects you from external judgment. Your journey is yours alone, and it's essential to understand that no one else can define it but you. We often find ourselves looking to others for guidance, for validation, or even for approval. The desire to fit in, to be accepted, and to be recognized is deeply ingrained in human nature. However, what we often fail to realize is that our journey is uniquely personal. It is not a path that can be dictated by anyone else's opinions, judgments, or expectations. When we let others determine the course of our journey, we lose touch with the essence of who we are, the essence of what makes us unique. Throughout life, we are often exposed to external pressures that attempt to shape the way we live, the choices we make, and the way we see ourselves. Society, family, friends, and even strangers often project their own views onto us, shaping how we define success, happiness, and fulfillment. These influences can be powerful, and it's easy to succumb to them. It's tempting to follow someone else's blueprint for life, especially when we are uncertain about our own path. But allowing others to define your journey is one of the quickest ways to lose sight of who you truly are. The reality is that your journey is your own creation. No one knows your heart, your dreams, or your aspirations the way you do. Only you have the power to choose which direction you want to go in. Only you can decide what success looks like for you, what your passions are, and what your purpose is in this world. It is not something that can be handed to you by someone else, no matter how much they might believe they know what's best for you. While it's natural to seek guidance and advice from others, it's equally important to trust your own intuition, to listen to your own desires, and to take ownership of the decisions that will shape your life. There will always be people who try to impose their vision on your journey. They might tell you what career you should pursue, whom you should associate with, or even how you should live your life. They might suggest that you follow a certain path because it worked for them, or because it aligns with societal norms or expectations. But when you let someone else dictate your journey, you are effectively giving up your autonomy, your power, and your right to live authentically. In the end, this can lead to resentment, dissatisfaction, and a profound sense of disconnection from who you truly are. Your journey is a reflection of your personal values, your unique experiences, and your evolving aspirations. It's a combination of all the moments that have shaped you and the lessons you've learned along the way. It is about forging your own path, making mistakes, experiencing growth, and discovering who you are along the way. No one else can walk this path for you. Even if people try to guide you in a direction that feels right for them, it might not be the path that aligns with your inner truth, and that's perfectly okay. The beauty of your journey lies in its individuality. Sometimes others will not understand the choices you make or the direction you decide to take. They may have their own fears, doubts, or expectations, and these can sometimes cloud their judgment. They might not be able to see the bigger picture of your life, and that's because it's your life to live, not theirs. It's easy to get caught up in trying to explain your decisions or to seek their approval, but you have to remind yourself that their approval is not necessary for your journey to be valid. You don't need to justify your choices to anyone. The most important thing is that you are living authentically and true to yourself. The pressure to conform, to follow the paths others have taken can be overwhelming. We see people around us seemingly achieving what society defines as success, and it's easy to feel like we are falling behind or not living up to expectations. However, comparison is the thief of joy. Each person's path is different, and while it might look easy or glamorous from the outside, you have no idea what struggles or sacrifices they have encountered to get to where they are. It is not worth measuring your success against theirs. Your journey is not meant to be compared to anyone else's. It is meant to be lived in your own unique way, with your own set of circumstances, challenges, and victories. Living your own journey also means accepting that it's okay to change direction. Life is not a straight line. There will be twists, turns, and moments when you feel lost or uncertain, but that's all part of the process. Growth happens in those moments of uncertainty, when you're forced to reflect on where you've been and where you want to go next. The journey may not always be smooth or predictable, but that's what makes it meaningful. Embrace the detours, because often the most valuable lessons are found not in the destination, but in the journey itself. Sometimes there are moments when the path you choose feels lonely. You might feel like you're the only one walking it, while others seem to be ahead, following the crowd. In these moments, it's important to remember that you are not meant to follow the crowd. You are meant to carve your own path, even if that means walking alone for a while. The solitude you experience on your journey can provide the clarity and strength needed to move forward with conviction. It is during these moments of isolation that you truly come to understand your own heart, your own desires, and what you're capable of achieving. It's also essential to understand that your journey does not have to make sense to others. It doesn't need to be approved by society or defined by traditional milestones of success. There is no one-size-fits-all formula for happiness, fulfillment, or achievement. The only thing that matters is that you are living in alignment with who you are, with what you value, and with what brings you joy. Don't let others' expectations confine your potential. Your journey is yours to shape, and it's okay if it doesn't look like anyone else's. The beauty of life lies in the diversity of experiences, and your own unique journey is just as valid as anyone else's. Every step you take on your journey, whether it's forward or backward, is part of your growth. You are constantly evolving, learning, and discovering new facets of who you are. The mistakes you make, the risks you take, the triumphs and failures, they all contribute to the person you are becoming. The most important thing is that you are walking your own path, staying true to your heart, and finding the courage to keep moving forward regardless of the obstacles or the voices trying to sway you off course. Your journey is yours alone to experience, and it is as valuable as you allow it to be. When we experience rejection or neglect, it's easy to fall into the trap of self-doubt. We start questioning our value, wondering what went wrong, and thinking that perhaps we are not good enough. These feelings can be especially intense when someone we care about or admire chooses to ignore us. It's natural to want to understand why someone is not giving us the attention or recognition we feel we deserve. But in moments like these, we must remind ourselves that we are not defined by someone else's actions or their inability to see our worth. The truth is, other people's perceptions of us are often shaped by their own experiences, fears, and biases. When someone ignores you, it usually has more to do with their internal struggles or limitations than it does with you. People are often trapped in their own worlds, dealing with their own insecurities, past wounds, or fears. These emotions can cloud their judgment and prevent them from recognizing the value in others. It's important to understand that their rejection is a reflection of their own struggles and has little to do with your worth as a person. Their inability to see your light doesn't dim it. We often tie our self-worth to how others perceive us, but the reality is that you do not need validation from others to recognize your own value. The moment you start relying on others to define your worth, you give them power over your emotions, your actions, and your sense of self. People will come and go, and some may choose not to acknowledge you, but that does not lessen your importance or the gifts you bring into the world. Your worth is not determined by external factors. It is something inherent within you, something that no one can take away. When we are ignored or overlooked, it can feel like we are being rejected for who we are. We might think that our opinions, ideas, or presence are not valued. But it's important to remember that rejection or indifference does not define our character. Often those who ignore us are simply unaware of the beauty and value we hold, or they may be too caught up in their own lives to truly engage with us. Their lack of attention or acknowledgement is not a reflection of your worth, but rather a sign of their own limitations and inability to connect with you on a deeper level. It's also worth considering that the act of ignoring someone is often driven by fear. People may ignore us because they feel threatened, uncomfortable, or intimidated. When we are unapologetically ourselves, it can challenge others, forcing them to confront their own insecurities or fears. This can lead to avoidance or indifference because they don't know how to deal with the discomfort that our presence brings. But again, this has nothing to do with us. It's about their fear of being exposed, vulnerable, or challenged. Their fear leads them to retreat, to shut themselves off, and to ignore what they don't understand or feel threatened by. This response is a reflection of their own inner conflict, not our worth. Another important aspect of this is the idea that not everyone is meant to walk alongside us on our journey. Sometimes people come into our lives for a season, and other times they leave when their purpose in our lives has been fulfilled. It's natural to want to hold on to relationships, to seek validation from those we care about, but it's important to remember that we are not defined by our relationships with others. If someone chooses to ignore you, it may be a sign that their role in your life has come to an end. Their departure or their indifference may simply mean that they are no longer aligned with where you are going or with who you are becoming. This can be painful, but it's also a sign that you are growing, evolving, and moving toward the right people and experiences that will align with your current path. The key to overcoming feelings of rejection or neglect is learning to focus inward. When you are secure in who you are and what you bring to the world, you no longer need the validation of others to feel worthy. Your sense of self is rooted in your own understanding of your value, not in the recognition or approval of others. It's easy to fall into the trap of seeking attention or approval, but true peace comes from within. When you stop looking outside of yourself for validation, you open up the space for self-acceptance and self-love. No longer reliant on others for your sense of worth, you free yourself from the emotional roller coaster of external judgment. In moments of being ignored or overlooked, take the opportunity to reconnect with your inner self. Reflect on the things that bring you joy, the passions that drive you, and the qualities that make you unique. By nurturing your own growth and focusing on your own development, you begin to recognize that you are more than enough just as you are. You are not defined by how others treat you, but by the love and respect you give yourself. The more you align with your true self, the less you'll be affected by external rejection. You'll become more resilient, more grounded in your own identity, and better able to navigate the challenges life throws at you. Additionally, the act of ignoring someone may also be a sign that the other person is struggling with their own emotions. Sometimes people ignore others not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to express themselves.
Sotto la luna cammino piano, con le scarpe vecchie di papà, strada parra, lo cori canta, e ti penso mentre va. Sotto la luna cammino piano, con le scarpe vecchie di papà, strada parra, lo cori canta, e ti penso mentre va. A nonna spanna i panni fuori, culo soli che struscia l'aria, o pane caldo sopra la pietra e l'odore di casa mia. Vento di casa, portami a tia, tra le mura du paese mia. Se tu mi chiami, torno con tutto, chianta un limone, ti do lo frutto. Una fontana cantante chiazza i picciri di corrono fuori, e una canzone antica balliamo con l'organetto che suona ancora. Una fontana cantante chiazza i picciri di corrono fuori, e una canzone antica balliamo con l'organetto che suona ancora. E se lontano vai non scordare, che ogni pezza cagati si può ricostruire. Lo cuore mio sempre ti sapi, torna a casa che lo cielo t'abbraccia. Vento di casa, portami a tia, tra le mura tu paese mia. Se tu mi chiami, torno con tutto,